Hello, people of the internet. My name is Simon Miller, and if you have just stumbled across this little video, it's called Miller's Musings. It's a vlog series about mental health, depression, anxiety, and just life in general because I'm passionate about that stuff. And while I only have a small platform, I'm always like, people don't talk about it enough. That's basically the whole remit. In case you want to know why I do it, I don't feel like people talk about it. Even though in 2018 we talk about that kind of stuff even more, it's not enough. And it could potentially never be enough while there are unfortunately some individuals out there that don't really understand the trials and tribulations that goes along with it. Sorry I didn't do one last week. As you can hear by my voice, I was out running around doing other things, trying to earn the almighty dollar, as they say. All to do with my shoulder. We're not going to get into it. But it was quite interesting because over these last 2 weeks, I get a lot of my, not ideas, that's the wrong word, but I get a lot of feedback, not directly to me, but at least an inclination of how people are dealing with such struggles in life on social media. Because as social media grows and gets bigger and bigger, people are getting more and more comfortable, I guess, with talking about struggles they've personally been through. I'm not going to name any names. That's not what this is about. I'm not here to unless something specific happens down the line and somebody wants me to, I'm not here to do that. That would be incredibly unfair. But something I noticed a lot is that and I should say, I know I jump around all these videos. It's like, it's not a vlog like you'd see elsewhere. It's basically my musings, right? So you have to forgive the production in that sense. But what I see, sorry, what I was going to say is that I'm no medical professional. If you are struggling, you should certainly seek out help, be it your counselor, a GP, talk to a friend, talk to your family member. That's always the most important thing. But something that I do see a lot is when people get into these slumps or when mental health crops up or when you start to struggle, there's a worry, and a perfectly understandable worry, about not only how other people are going to treat you because of it, but that the way that they treat you is going to make that person feel like they've done something wrong. So, for example, let's say you work in an office, you work in accounts, and you know that you're struggling and you know that it's going to be a tough day. A lot of people don't want to tell their boss in case he or she doesn't understand. Because I think a lot of people have experienced this. When somebody doesn't understand about mental health, straight away you think that you've got a problem, that it's on you, that you should have done more, that you're alone. And those are the kind of feelings and emotions which will take you down, I don't want to say a bad path, because I don't want to put negative connotations on it. It is a path, but it's a path that ultimately you don't want to go down if you're already struggling with other things. So just to keep it really simple, to try and give another voice to that argument, if you are dealing with any of that stuff, you don't have anything to feel bad about. We did a video a few months ago that was called Mental Health Isn't a Competition, because that's something else that I've seen that triggers these kind of emotions where people go, well, you may have, I don't know, I'm picking this at random, but you may have OCD, but my OCD is worse. And that could be true from a medical point of view, but perception is reality. So even if the person that doesn't suffer from OCD as badly in their world is really struggling with it, then that goes out the window. Mental health is a very personal thing, it's a very individual thing, and only you know how much it affects you. So certainly never feel bad or guilty just because somebody else seems like they're having it harder than you, because you're still having a hard time, and that's what matters. But on top of that, somebody else not understanding your mental health issues and making you feel bad for it, be that directly or indirectly, is not your problem. That's a reflection on them, and that's a reflection on society as a whole that needs to educate itself and understand. Well, educate's a bit harsh. I don't want to sound like that guy. That sounds too preachy. But it's indicative of a society that needs to be more familiar and more understanding when it comes to these problems. I'm not saying that some people don't abuse it. Of course they do. I don't know anyone like this, but it's the modern day. Like, it's life, it's people, it's humans. Somebody out there, of course, will be using their mental health or using the excuse of mental health to get something that they want. But we can't stop that. We can't focus on that. If they are doing that, to me, that probably underlines another problem that they're dealing with. So actually, they're struggling too, or at least that's how I would say it. See it. My voice is all screwed up from doing a job. You'll have to excuse me. But the real issue out of all of this is, yes, don't, even though, and I get it too, because it's hard. Let's say you do go into work and you think, well, I can't tell my boss about this because if they don't understand, I could lose my job. It could cost me this, blah, blah, blah. I'm not necessarily sure that it would ever go to the point of actually you losing your job in 2018, or at least I hope so. Maybe I'm being naive there. I'd keep my fingers crossed that wasn't the case. But even then, this is the way I see it. When you are down in the dumps, struggling, anxious, feeling depressed, I think that you have to become the number one priority and you have to put yourself first. Now, obviously, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where financially you're going to be affected because that's going to make you feel worse. But at the same time, maybe being in a job that's making you feel like that is somewhere that you don't want to be. And it's never as easy that you can't just open one door and go, oh, screw that, you'll close the window, I'm now going to go over here and another job. But maybe it acts as the catalyst for you to shift yourself on from that so you can find somewhere that suits you, your personality, your individuality. And I just think that's really important because you should never wake up ever and feel that way and then have the added stress on top of, oh no, how am I going to sort this out? Because people should be understanding. And again, there is certainly a way to abuse that understanding, but I'm not worrying about that today. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about step one. I'm talking about over here where some people really, they start to feel bad and they start to feel guilty and they think that something's wrong with them when there's really not. We say this in every Miller's Musings, and I know a lot of these, they do cross over and there is a lot of a similar thing said, but that's because personally for me, I feel like it is all wrapped up in one, and that is that you should never let anybody else make you feel worse than you already feel, because depression and anxiety is a horrible place to be. It's like when you get in from a bad day, right? You have a bad day at work, you get in, you're feeling terrible, you're kind of on the edge, your balance is a bit off. All it takes is one comment from someone else and you can fall down. And as we've said on Miller's Musings before, it's all about trying to build up that self-esteem and build up that self-worth so that you're strong enough to fight against any, unforeseen tidbits that you weren't expecting beforehand. But I do think it's important to note that, because I do know that when you're in that depression and you're in that bad place, I don't like bad, it's too negative, but in that place that you don't want to be, that it can be so easy for all the little things to start, building up, and I have to cancel on this friend, they're not going to like me, I have to do this, I have to do that, and before long you feel 10 times worse because now you've got guilt on top of everything as well. I know I'm just some dude on the internet. Again, I've got no official status. I don't have any medical training. But I will say, for one, if you are watching this and feeling that way, you don't need to feel guilty. If anything, if anything, it's true. It just sucks that you're there to begin with. But hopefully, with the right support network and talking to the right people, you can pull yourself out of it and you can get back to a place where you'd rather be, which is being happy, taking every day as it comes. And there's always going to be knocks. We can't pretend otherwise. Nobody lives the perfect life. Again, the celebrity example is utter proof of that. When you hear about celebrities that have money, fame, living their dreams, still waking up and being like, I don't know what's wrong with me, quote unquote. So you're going to have knocks, but the idea is, again, try not to look too far into the future. Looking in the past, remembering what's happened in the past so that you can learn from it going forward. That is it's an incredible tool. It sounds so cliche and it sounds so stereotyped, but there's a reason you have cliches. And learning from your past and learning from those experiences and taking all of that to make sure that it shapes your future for the better is essential. But on top of that, it's always about living in this moment. As stupid as it sounds, nothing actually matters more than this and this and this. And that's why time is so crazy. We're getting all hippy trippy. But time to continually move forward to the point that every second that takes over the last second becomes more important than the last, because that's the one that we're existing in. And that's when your head explodes and you don't know what's going on. But yeah, I just saw a lot of it on Twitter. A lot of people were saying, I don't feel good today, but I don't want to tell my boss because, or having, stories about, I used to get worried about going to work because if I saw but I completely understand that fear. I hope it hasn't come across as anything else. I think it's like any kind of problem like that. It be gambling or I can't think of anything else. Basically when, you need to tell someone and just get it off. You need to have that sort of, interaction with somebody before you start realizing how you can get past it, because a problem shared is always the first step. You need to tell someone, look, I have a problem. And then as soon as you shared it, or alcoholism, I guess, is another good example, not a good one. And I think that we should never be in a place where we can't share our thoughts, because brain's crazy. Brain's throwing stuff out there all the time. You have weird thoughts, good thoughts, bad thoughts, and the last thing you want to have to do is keep them pushed down just because on the surface you're like, I must be a bad person. This must be a negative reflection on me because of all the X, Y's, and Z's that it may bring up. Because of that, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong. The only thing wrong with struggling with your mental health is that you're struggling with your mental health, and really it'd be better if you weren't. So let's try and put everything in place to the point where you aren't. Very, very ranty and very all over the place today. I'll put it down to my throat and the fact that I'm quite tired. But I do think it's an important thing to say. There's nothing wrong. That's what I'm going to call this video as well. There's nothing wrong with being depressed. Maybe I won't call it that. That sounds completely not what I mean. You take my point. There is nothing wrong with it. We all feel it. Again, we just have to find a way to get back to a point where we're feeling good, we're feeling happy, and again, we can use that depression. Never forget it. Always remember it, and hopefully go on to better times. My voice is absolutely ruined. At one point, when I do have the time, I am going to turn these into a podcast series. Hopefully, I'll try and do it this week. So I know a lot of people said they'd rather listen to them as they were walking around. Again, it just started as a whim on YouTube, and they have developed into a little something. I was at EGX recently, and thank you to everyone that came up to me and mentioned Miller's Musings. It means a lot. It really does mean a lot to me because when I first started these, I had my own apprehensions more than anxieties about it because I thought, who wants to hear some bald dude on the internet talk about mental health? But then I was like, you know what, I'm doing it for me, and also hopefully, I thought even if one person can watch it and get something out of it, then it's a win-win all round. As I'm finding out when I do bump into people at these shows, it seems to at least be providing some form of entertainment. That's not really the right word, but some viewing content for some people. So thank you to everyone that said nice words. We will do every Monday. I'll just keep ranting and talking. You can watch them. You can not watch them. You can do whatever you want. It's got over 10 minutes, so we'll bring it up there. But yeah, like, share, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. You know all that stuff. I don't like to pimp too much in these videos because that's not the point of it. But thank you again, and I will see you next Monday.